The brilliant mind of C.S. Lewis brought us some epic fantasy when he dived into the world of Narnia. But did you know he also dived into the world of sci-fi with his space trilogy? Right now I'm going to review the first book in that trilogy, Out of the Silent Planet. Have you read it? Let's talk in the comments. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my obscure book review for C.S. Lewis's Out of the Silent Planet. I'm excited to dive into this book and talk to you about this book because, gosh, I love C.S. Lewis. He is my absolute favorite author. There's something about the way that he writes, the way that he explores faith, the way he just dives in. It just connects with me, and I love this dude's writing. And this, the first book in C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, is no exception. So I love this trilogy. I'm excited to dive into this first book. In fact, I'm giving this book an A. It comes with a high recommendation from me for you to check it out because it's just such an interesting thing. And what's most interesting about it is it's the type of nerd that I am. I love sci-fi. I love it. And I was one of those Christian nerd kids growing up that always asked the question, what if there's life on other planets? And if you're like me and you grew up in a Christian home, you may have gotten answers like, they're just demons, forget about it. Or, no, the Bible doesn't talk about it, so that's not so. You know, what if there's life on other planets? I never wanted to think about it in an unbiblical way. God is super creative. What if there's life on other worlds? And what I love about C.S. Lewis, the way that he writes, it's a very good exploration from that Christian perspective, exploring the question of what if there's life on other planets? What would that look like and what would that be like? So because of the type of nerd that I am, I freaking love this. I've read all 3 books in the Space Trilogy multiple times, and I just finished reading this just the other day, and I was just, again, got so much out of it and loved it. Now, depending on your expectations before diving into this book, there might be a few negatives. I mean, for instance, if you know C.S. Lewis best from the Chronicles of Narnia, and you see how simple those books are written, though they're written for kids, adults can read them and love them too, and they're adventurous and lots of stuff going on. Out of the Silent Planet is very different. It moves a lot slower. In fact, it is the slowest of the Space Trilogy. This is not written with kids in mind. This is definitely written with adults in mind. It's written by a college professor. The lead character is a college professor, and so it very much kind of talks on that level. It's written in the late 1930s in England, and so there's a couple times where no matter how many times I've read it, I sometimes have to go back and reread things and kind of, I get it from context and, kind of move forward. And a lot of really awesome, deep philosophical ideas, but just sometimes you got to read a little bit slower and go back over it once or twice and go, I see exactly what this is saying. That's so smart. But it's definitely a book that moves slow, and you kind of got to read it a little bit slower. So if you go in with the wrong expectation, those could be negatives. But if you go in with the right expectation and know what you're going to get, yeah, it's a little bit slower, but what this really is an exploration from a Christian perspective of life existing on other worlds, and what does that mean, and what does that look like, then it's an incredibly fascinating book. And I find it incredibly fascinating. So Dr. Ransom, who is this college professor guy, he's like on vacation on a walkabout, gets kidnapped by these 2 idiots, taken aboard their spaceship that they've been building. And I call them idiots because they had already been to Mars. They had already met one of the races on Mars. They had tried to learn the language, but didn't quite get a handle on it. And they thought that the race was asking them for a human blood sacrifice. In reality, this race called the Sorns was saying, hey, we've been sent to bring you to Oyarsa, who is our leader. So we want to bring you to our leader. And they just totally, because humans have these weird, dark, archaic, scary fantasies, thought, oh, you want a blood sacrifice? So they go back to Earth and find somebody to kidnap and take him up, and Ransom is on vacation, walking by. Well, let's do it. And so they take this guy, drug him, and take him into outer space. So he runs from them once he lands on Mars, which is really called Malacandra. And what this book is actually about is him meeting these 3 different races on Mars. And so he lives with this one tribe for quite some time. It's where he learns the language and learns their belief system. And it's about him learning about them and learning about their life. And then he goes from this tribe of the Haras and he meets a Sorn. And so you learn about the Sorns. And you go from the Sorns to meet the 3rd people that I can never pronounce their name, and so all of it is incredibly interesting. And what's the most interesting to me is when you dive into this type of life called Adilla. And I know I'm saying it 100% wrong, but the Adilla are basically angelic. They don't die, they don't breed, and you can't see them because light passes through them. But if you're looking directly at them, you'll never see them. But if they come and speak to you, you'll hear them, and in the corner of your eye, you'll see light, and you will know that that little thing of light is actually them. But it's interesting as it dives into these Adilla, who are basically these angelic-type beings, and then you have Oyarsa, who basically is the archangel, who is the leader of that planet. And you come to find one of the most interesting things about this book and the entire space trilogy, that these archangels rule over the different planets to protect the planets, to keep them where they're supposed to be. If there's life on the planet, to, watch over that life and be good stewards over it. But Earth, before life was on it, before we were on it, there was this Oyarsa, this leader, and he became bent. In other words, he became evil. He fell, and he rose up in war, and he actually smote Malacandra and hit the surface of Mars because this evil Oyarsa, this evil archangel, rebelled and created war in the cosmos. So Meladil, which is the name for God that these other creatures have for God, Meladil and the Adilla fight in this war and push this being back and imprison him in the air of Earth. And so they lose all communication from Earth because now it's under siege and it has become Thalcundra, the silent planet. And so one of the deeper scenes in this is you have Ransom, our lead character, standing before the Oyarsa of Mars, and then he's got the other two bad guys there. One guy's named Devon and one guy's named Weston. And basically you have Ransom, who is a man of faith, and he's anxious to learn about Meladil and how God interacts with this other life on the planet. But then you have the Oyarsa, who is like, wow, you're from Thalcundra, the silent planet. Oh, we all long to know the wonders of Meladil and the silent planet and his dealings with you. We know nothing of it, and we would like to learn. And so it's interesting getting it from that faith perspective, and Ransom anxious to share, Ransom anxious to learn. And it's just such an interesting scene, and how that all unfolds. The book is just so profound. So I'm giving this book an A. I just greatly enjoyed this book, love this book. If you've read Out of the Silent Planet or any book in this space trilogy, what are your thoughts on it? Let's talk about that in the comments. On my channel, if this is the first video you've seen, I do movie reviews. I have this playlist for book reviews, so I'm reading a good book. I love to rant about it and talk about it, so you can definitely find more of that there in my book review playlist. But I do movie reviews, ranking videos, this thing called a theological analysis, where I really love to pick apart movies and their symbolism and dig deep. So hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified the very next moment any one of my new videos drop, and you won't miss it. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.